Buying a car. It's one of the biggest purchases you'll make, and it's a complex transaction, with loads of forms, disclosures, and paperwork required by the federal and state governments. But that complexity and all those forms you have to sign, new regulations would make the transaction even more complicated and confusing if bureaucrats in Washington have their way. Let's take a look. In today's trillion-dollar automotive market, about 45 million new and used cars are sold each year at dealerships. More than 160 million vehicles are taken for repairs and service. All told, consumers interact with dealerships over 1 billion times each year. But the federal government is proposing new regulations that would require 3 new forms to be filled out and presented to a consumer, 2 for signing, if you decide to finance a vehicle and buy a product like an extended service contract. And a new form would be required each time you ask about a different vehicle. More forms with questions not only about the new vehicle price, but also about trade-ins, down payments, rebates, financing costs, and extended warranties. Every time you so much as ask about a vehicle or how to finance it, there are new disclosures involved, in addition to all the forms and paperwork that already have to be filled out when you purchase the vehicle. But it goes further. Dealerships would effectively not be able to answer questions about monthly payments for different vehicles unless you sign new disclosures over and over. The government would also effectively require dealerships to retain every written sales or financing interaction they have with a customer, including emails, texts, chats with the sales or financing representatives, on top of the loads of forms that are already kept. And it would do all this without ever having tested these proposals in the real world to see if they actually work with consumers. What on earth is going on here? Over the last 10 years, local dealerships have sold more than 450 million cars and serviced vehicles more than 1.5 billion times. Over those 10 years, the FTC has prosecuted wrongdoing at dealerships 37 times. Every consumer deserves to be treated fairly, and each of these enforcement actions is serious. When wrongdoing happens, the law is clear, and the federal government already has the tools to rightly enforce the law against those who break it. But 37 instances in 10 years, over 450 million transactions, is just not evidence of a widespread problem. And instead of going after the outliers, these regulations would radically change the car buying process for everybody, adding layers of complexity, new forms and disclosures to fill out multiple times in the car buying process. And as 80% of new car dealerships are now able to sell vehicles online, these new regulations could thoroughly frustrate progress in online sales. And all this at a time when consumer satisfaction at the dealership is increasing substantially, even in the studies that the government cites. It's 2022. The whole world is online, including car sales. Today's transactions should be easier and simpler, not more complex and burdensome for consumers. Tell the FTC its new rule on vehicle sales is unnecessary, and that they should continue to enforce the laws on the books, not create new complex rules that will make car buying more complicated, hurt consumers, and stand in the way of progress. Paid for by NADA.